Hi everybody, welcome to the Manifold channel. Today we're going to use the Manifold Viewer, free software from Manifold Software, to do something very useful. We're going to import a database that we got off the web, and we're going to create a drawing of Neolithic monuments in France that we might want to visit on our next trip to France. And so let's get going. We're looking at Manifold Viewer right now. All this works exactly the same way in Manifold Release 9. We're using Windows 11. So let's click on File, Import. And here we're going to import this file, megalith.mdb. Click Import, and it imports instantly. It's a table. Let's pop that table open. Now what we did is we imported this from an Access MDB file. Windows is a little weird about working with Access and other Microsoft Office formats in a 64-bit Windows. So you might want to pay attention, either have a 64-bit Microsoft Office installed or have the Access database engine installed. That's easy to do using links in the Manifold website. Just takes a moment, and it makes all this stuff effortless. What we're looking at here is a table that was created by an enthusiast in France, which has a list of all these different Neolithic monuments that are in France. Let's arrange this a little bit better. I'm going to Control-click on Comment and move the comment field up a bit under the description. That looks good, and let's also make this field a little narrower. So here's the name and here's the comment. And what we're looking for is we're looking for dolmen. That's different from some of the other things. And what's a dolmen? Well, let's take a look at a picture here that I have open in another Manifold session. I'm going to move it into view in the video. And that's a dolmen. This is a dolmen that's about chest high. The capstone here is maybe 2 or 3 meters by 2 or 3 meters. So it's a few tons. And it's located between Chartres and Tours, right off the N10 highway. And this is a small dolmen. Dolmens come in all sizes and all sorts of shapes, from piles of broken rocks to really big ones like this one. This is a huge dolmen that's near Tours, and you can actually walk underneath this. It's that tall. So if you're a tall person, you can walk underneath these capstones. These capstones are absolutely giant capstones. They were brought here typically from a couple hundred kilometers from this area. They were actually moved overland on rollers to various locations. Most dolmen were created between 4,000 and 6,000 years ago, so they've been around a long time, and they're really spectacular to find. They're all over France, and it's amazing how many tourists go driving by them without even bothering to stop. So anyway, we want to find all the dolmen that are in this table, and that's easy to do. What we're going to do is we're going to use select, and we're going to use select based on the comment field. And on the comment field, we're going to search for text that contains the word dolmen. And you can see it's no case, so that's upper or lower case. That'll select everything, like, say, this record right there. And if I want, I can click Preview to see the sorts of things that it will select. And if I like what I see in the preview, I can just click the Select field, and it's going to select all those dolmen records. If I go scrolling down here through the table, you can see it's selected everything that has a dolmen in the comment field. Okay, that's great. So let's create a table using those records. To do that, I'm going to click Edit Copy, or I could just choose Control-C. And here in the project pane, I'm going to right-click and choose Paste, and I've just created a new table. Let's call that table Dolmen Table. And if I pop open a Dolmen table, I'm going to close this megalith table right there. I don't need it anymore. You can see that all this now has records that are only the dolmen in it. And so what I want to do now is I'd like to create a drawing from these, and to do that, I want to create a geometry field using the latitude and longitude location of each of these various dolmen. And to do that, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to click Edit Schema, and I'm going to add a geometry field using this Add button. Click Add, click Field, and we're going to call that field a geom, which is a kind of standard thing we call geometry fields in Manifold, so that the next person working with this table knows what all this is supposed to be. And of all these many different data types, we're going to choose the geom data type. We could choose geom MFD, or WKB, but we'll just choose geom. And Manifold knows that a geometry field has a coordinate system to it, and since the latitude and longitude locations here are in lat long, let's choose one of the presets, latitude and longitude, for the coordinate system that's used by the geometry field. That looks okay, so I'm going to click OK. That's what we're going to add to the schema. Click Save Changes, and there I've just created a geom field. So now let's populate the geom field with a geometry, point geometry, for using the latitude and longitude numbers. To do that, I'll use the Transform pane. And in the Transform pane, I'm going to transform the geom field, and I'll use the Compose template, and I'm going to compose a point using the longitude for the X value and the latitude for the Y value, and I click Transform, and there I just populated that with points. So now I have a table that has geometry in it that's points, and from that I can create a drawing. I'm going to right click on that table and choose Create New Drawing, and let's call that let's just call that, instead of dolmen drawing, let's just call it dolmen. Great, and it's already knows it's a latitude longitude coordinate system. It's going to the dialog will create a spatial index for me. I'm going to click Create Drawing, and there I've just created a drawing. If I wanted to pop open that drawing by itself, double click on that. That pops open, and you can see this is kind of like a stretched format that you get with latitude and longitude display. That's kind of stretched wide in the latitude of France. We're going to use the drawing, however, in a more interesting way. I'm going to right click the drawing and choose Create New Map. I want to create a map, and I'm going to use a base layer that's a Bing map, street map base layer, and the coordinate system for the map is going to be a pseudo-Mercator. Click Create Map, and now when I double click open that map, it'll pop open, and you can see the base layer is the Bing Street Maps layer, and here's the dolmen layer, which we can pan and zoom around and take a look. I'm right clicking, by the way. I'm left clicking and dragging to pan, and I'm right clicking and dragging to zoom in. So for example, if I want to zoom in here near Vendôme, let's see where that's right. Okay, right here. This is where this dolmen was that we saw in this picture right here. And so that's right there. That's there. And what you can see that it's doing, and if I want, I can control click on the dolmen tab to zoom to fit to that layer. What it's doing here is it's taking the dolmen drawing, which is in latitude and longitude, and is dynamically reprojecting it on the fly to show it within this map, because the map is, if I click here on the info pane, the map is in pseudo-Mercator, but that dolmen layer is in latitude and longitude. Pseudo-Mercator is kind of a more convenient projection for a map to use, because all the big base layers that you get for free from the web, like Bing Street Maps and Google and all that, those are all in pseudo-Mercator. So if you want all these letters and everything to come out looking right when you're using something like Bing or Google or whatever, or OpenStreetMap as a base layer, you want your map to be in pseudo-Mercator, and you want any other layers that happen to be in latitude and longitude or whatever reprojected on the fly. And as you can see, Manifold reprojects all these on the fly. These could be millions of points, and it would still reproject them on the fly basically instantly. Okay, so what do we want to do now? I want to when we want to find the dolmen that we want to look at, as you can see, there are a lot of dolmen here all over France, but some of them are just piles of rocks, and we're not interested in piles of rocks. We're interested in big dolmen, like this guy here, which is near Tours. And to find all those, let's go here to the dolmen table, and I want to find just the ones that are really big and create a drawing layer that is just those. Now, I've worked with this data set before, and I know that right here, for example, when you look at these in the name, the hobbyist who created this database, and it's a lot of work, so God bless him, added this *5 or +5 or -5. The number here is his reckoning of how important that dolmen is. So all the ones that end with a 5 at the end of them are really big dolmens, and those are the ones that we want to get. And we want to create a drawing of that. And to create that, a simple way of doing that, I'm going to control-click these to highlight it, click Copy, then I'm going to click Paste, and I've just made a copy of the drawing of the table. And now I'm going to right-click on that. I'm going to rename it, both the drawing and the table simultaneously. I'm going to call that Big Dolmens. And automatically rename the table for me as well. So now let's pop open that Big Dolmen table. And what I want to do in the Big Dolmen table is I want to get only those records here, that end with a 5. And to do that, I'm going to go back here into the Select pane, and using the name field, I'm going to search for text, and if you look here, you can see it remembers the last thing that I did. So I don't have to reset all these things. I'm looking for text that contains. Actually, I don't want a text that contains. I want text that ends with a 5. There, so I can do a preview, and it'll show me which ones it'll pick out. There aren't a lot of them, but there are some, and the ones that are there are pretty darn impressive. So those are the ones I want. Let's click Select. I've selected those. And now I want to select all the other ones so I can get rid of them. So I'll just choose Edit, Select Inverse. And now I'll click Edit, Delete. Delete selected records. Yep. And now I'm only left with those records that end with a 5. So that's, I can now go back here to the map, and here in the project pane, let's drag and drop the Big Dolmen layer into the map. All right, and let's color this big dolmen layer differently. To do that, I'll use the style pane, where I'll make the points in that layer bright green, and I'll make them 12 points in size, so you can see where the big dolmen points appear. The dolmen layer, by the way, let's change this and let's make those nice and orange color right there. So those are just the ordinary dolmen, but the big dolmen are those big green ones. Let's turn off this layer so we can just see the big dolmen layers. And let's take a look at some of these. For example, here in the valley of the Loire, between Angers and Saumur. Here's Saumur. Saumur, by the way, is where the famous fortress is that was one of the inspirations for the castle at Disneyland. This is a pretty cool dolmen right here. And if we want to take a look at where that's located, we might want to add a different base layer besides the street map layer. That's easy to do in Manifold. I can either right-click and choose Create New Data Source and use one of these pre-built ones, like for example Google Maps Satellite. Or if I like, I can use the full. Let's click up here a little bit so that I create new data source. Or I can click on More, which will give me the full new data source dialog. And let's call this new data source GSAT. And the type, there's a whole lot of different types of servers here. I mean, that I can use. It's just endless. There's all these different databases. There's all these different file sources. And many of these categories have lots of different things within them. I'm going to use an image server. And within the image servers, let's pick the Google Maps Satellite server. Click Create Data Source. And now that creates a data source where I have a satellite image layer that I can drag and drop into the map. And we'll bring in an image from Google. And you can see how quick that was. We can zoom right in here to take a look at this dolmen. And this is a pretty darn big dolmen. If you want to look here, over here, I think there's a there's a road, so you can see here's a tractor, and here's a house. So this is an extremely large dolmen, and we can take a look at what it is by clicking that on the tab to make that layer the active layer. And I'm going to alt-click on this point to pick it, and this tells us what it is. And if you read French, you can see this is the I'll hover over the comment field so you can see what that has. This is the Domaine de la Pierre Couverte de la Madeleine, and let's edit this so we can see the whole description. My French is really awful, so I won't try to say this, but I'll just say this is a very imposing dolmen that at one time was used as a boulangerie, that is, as a bakery, and it's covered with Manifold deux en deux. Well, okay, it has 4 supports. Okay, I mean, anybody knows what that means, and it's a big dolmen. Let's leave it at that. So let's take a look at some of the other dolmens that are nearby here, and I'm using the mouse wheel mouse to scroll back. Let's take a look at this dolmen right here. See what this one is. Here's another big dolmen. And that's not a particularly good view because that tree's in the way. Let's all click on that. Let's see what this is. So this is a typical Angevin dolmen where the cap rock measures 7 meters by 7 meters. That's really immense. That's something that's going to weigh many tons. And let's zoom out here and let's see if we can find that big dolmen near Tours where we had the illustration. So that would be here's Tours, and if I want to see Tours, I can just turn the Google Sat layer off and on. Let's zoom in here. I'm right-clicking and dragging to zoom in. This is a very cool dolmen, and it's located inside this little grove of trees. And it's actually, here's the location. This is the dolmen that we're seeing inside the grove of trees. I was actually there at this dolmen, and I took a photo of it. So let's to focus on that layer, I'll click on that dot to see what it says. And that says is the grand rectangular dolmen that's 11 meters long, and it's made of 3 large table rocks. Those are the cap rocks with 6 supports. And the name of this was the Dolmen de la Mettrie. It doesn't say so in this commentary, but this is also known as the Grotto of the Fairies dolmen. It's that big, and you can see why it is, because it was good in years past. I imagine perhaps there were fairies that were dancing around inside of there. What's really cool about this is how this is kind of it's like a magic carpet. You can fly around all around France and see all the different dolmen and things that might be fun to look at. So when you're planning your next trip to France, let's turn on this this map here that shows all the regular dolmens, all the little ones, not just the big ones. For example, that dolmen that we looked at earlier that I showed you, which is right down, went right here. No, it's actually not there. Let's see. Let's find it. Right here. Okay, here it is. It's kind of funny. Here, this little village is called L'Enfer. Anyway, so here's where the dolmen is, and let's turn that Google Maps satellite image back on so we can zoom in. And you can see here's the N10. This is the road between Chartres and Tours. It's a delightful road, and here's a little traffic circle. And all these people from Clois-sur-Loire and Châteaudun and the Chartres that are rolling on down to Tours to go to the IKEA there and driving past the rolling around this traffic circle. Let's measure actually how far that is. I'm going to click draw a path from here to there to there. That's 564 meters, so it's less than a kilometer. So it's less than half a mile. So it's maybe a 30-second drive away from where they're going around this traffic circle. Is a really, really nice dolmen, and there it is right there. You can see that we've zoomed in. There's even a little rest area right off the side road. And here's where the dot is. So the dot isn't exactly on top of the dolmen. That's pretty typical for hobbyist geolocation data, but it's a still pretty cool place. And if we zoom in, I'll put the picture up here. I took this photo when I visited this dolmen in the winter. It was in the wintertime. So in the wintertime, the trees were not in leaf, and likewise the bushes. But winters in France are pretty soft, so the grass is green, at least this part of France. And I was standing right about here when I took the photo. You can see that the look of the photo, and then there's the trees and the fields in the background. So what's amazing is that you can travel all throughout France, and there's all these incredible sites which are really near the tourist routes, and people just drive by them all the time. I mean, there's spectacular dolmen in Paris. Paris is up here. And if you get the full database, you can see there's all sorts of other Neolithic monuments around Paris, like Menhir, and there's a Roman amphitheater in Paris itself, which people go walking right by, and they have no idea that on the other side of those buildings, where they're walking by in downtown Paris, there's a Roman amphitheater. I mean, how many people have seen the Roman amphitheater in France, right? And there's all these other different sites where there's dolmen and various parks and stuff like that. So take one of these maps along with you the next time you're traveling, and you can see all these cool places. Now, we've done all this in Viewer. It's called Viewer, so not Editor, because it's used basically for viewing data. It has a whole lot of analytic capability, but it's read-only. So you can't save this project. You can recreate it on the fly if you like, but you can't save it. And to do that, you could use a regular Manifold, and Manifold's not expensive, so it's exactly like Viewer, except that it's read and write. What you can do with Viewer, though, is you can do screenshots, and you can create screenshots for example, to show people directions to that particular dolmen that you found, and post those screenshots on your web or put them in the reports or that sort of thing. So that's just easy to do with Viewer absolutely for free. And if you do buy Manifold, so you can create projects, what you can do is you can create sophisticated projects like this. And if you have an organization with a lot of people in it, you only need one copy of Manifold, because you can create projects in Manifold that anybody can open up in Viewer. So you can create one project using your one copy, and then have thousands of people use them for free in Viewer. It's just a wonderful way to work with data that's really fast and really cool. I hope you've enjoyed this quick look at how to explore Neolithic relics, how to hunt down Neolithic relics in France. And you can imagine how you can use the same sort of technique for anything that you're interested in, because there's so many databases that you can download from the web. All you need is a package like this to be able to work with them, to manipulate them to your heart's content. Thanks for watching. Tell your friends about Manifold, and goodbye from Manifold Land. Well, that was fun. If you want to see more, visit us at www.manifold.net. As always, Manifold delivers the world's most advanced, highest quality spatial products for GIS and DBMS at a low price that you can afford. Once again, that's manifold.net. See you soon.